Good evening, dear participants. You are all welcome to the second series of KTUDELL online seminars. I'm Özlem, one of the research assistants of our department, as Naci Hocam said. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. I wish everyone a fun and inspiring time. Please feel free to write related questions in the chat box whenever you want. They are going to be answered by the speaker at the end of the presentation. And a reminder, in order to receive the certificate of participation, you should fill the form when it is shared in the chat box as well during the presentation. I'm glad to announce tonight's guest, Professor Dr. Şevki KÖMÜR from Muğla Sıtkı Koçman University. He's going to give a speech on the title of Assessment and Evaluation on Foreign Language Teaching. Before giving information about Şevki Hocam, we want to show you the university he works. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Professor Dr. Şevki KÖMÜR started and ended his education in Atatürk University at the Department of English Education between the years 1984 and 1993. Since 2012, he has been working in Muğla Sıtkı Koçman University, and he has been assigned the head of department, vice dean, and board member. Before Şevki Hocam's speech, let us listen our head of department, Professor Dr. Naci Kayaoğlu. The stage is yours.
Özlem, thank you very much. Merhaba, iyi akşamlar to all my friends and colleagues and dear students and graduates. And I'm very pleased to have Şevki Hocam here with a very, let's say, topic which is quite crucial. And I thank once more Şevki Hocam for being with us. And Hocam, you are very kind to accept our offer and to be with us to share your experience and expertise on this issue. So far, we have covered a wide range of topics since last year, from different dimensions of language teaching, culture, literature, to translation. but in particular, we have tried to cover all aspects of language education and teaching. Now we are here with a topic, testing, assessment, evaluation, which have become an integral part of teaching because testing as a whole gives us significant information about learners' language journey and involving progress and difficulties and challenges. So it gives a framework of competencies and capabilities we want to achieve. So why we have selected this topic in agreement with Hocam, because testing evaluates not only the progress and achievement of learners, but also the effectiveness of our teaching and also our instruction and materials and methods. But the problem with this, as far as we see, it does not receive due attention from teachers because it is seen a matter of asking questions, but it's a part of curriculum as important as other ingredients such as materials, methods, and syllabus. But we rarely question the reliability and validity of our testing system. So we as language teachers are not very critical about the appropriateness of our testing, assessment, evaluation, you name it. Well, so maybe we may not be aware of the alternative assessment other types. So I hope in this seminar will serve to increase our awareness about testing and also question ourselves in terms of and what we do in terms of testing we do in class. So Şevki Hocam, again, thank you very much. And
you're welcome.
The floor is yours, Hocam.
Okay, I would like to extend my gratitudes, my thanks to colleagues. They invited me to this seminar, to this conference. It is great honor to be with you here. With this group of people. Audiences. I would like to extend my sincere thanks first. Yes, why assessment? Why how can I say that? Evaluation of learning, evaluation of education, I can say. First of all, I would like to start to share my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my topic, the title, Assessment and Evaluation in Language Teaching, Language Education, I can say, in general. Why I'm interested in this issue is very much important one. Maybe years ago, it was 2003, I participated in a series of seminars. A group of seminars conducted by Carrie Smith. I think you remember that. Then she was the president of testing, International Testing Committee. And she came to Muğla and conducted a series of seminars. Then my interest started in testing. I am happy because I have been interested in this issue. Later, I started to have some e-courses, from Indiana University first, second English as a second and foreign language assessment. The practice of formative and summative assessment. I finished 2 courses, meanwhile. Then day by day, I got interested in this subject. I learned many things. I still learn in this issue, in this subject. Then I would like to share my ideas, my background in testing with you. Okay, this is the first question I can say. What does assessment mean to you first, and what is the purpose of assessment? What assessment techniques do you use in your classes? But first of all, I would like to ask my audience, my students, my colleagues, a question. Here's a question. What are the main terrestrial biomes? Do you know the answer of this question? It's a kind of testing, it's a kind of assessment. And would you please answer this question? What are the main terrestrial biomes. Do you know the answer of this question, ladies and gentlemen? Do you have an idea?
I have no idea.
John, could you be more specific about the terminology? So some
Sure. I mean, it is very much, you know, technical, I can say. I would like to give the answer. It is too much. It is related to geography. Most probably different types of region where life exists: tundras, steppes, jungles, savannas, deserts. I can say it is very much difficult. You know, this is kind of testing. This is kind of assessment of your world knowledge, assessment of your knowledge, etc. But it is very much difficult. You know, I mean, when this is geography, but when it is the case, I mean, when the language is the case, it is much more difficult. You know, because language, you know, offers us lots of choice, but assessment, I can say, evaluation becomes more difficult then. These are some of the difficulties we experience while, you know, while dealing with this issue. I mean, this complex issue, I can say. Here are some, you know, key issues, key concepts in testing, because we use it here in this presentation. I use these terms interchangeably, more or less, with the same meaning, I can say, but there are some differences. First, I mean, it is assessment. Assessment is different from, you know, evaluation. Assessment is a set of processes through which we try to understand and make inferences about the learner's, okay, learning process. But this is very much important. I'm going to base my discussion on this issue, assessment issue, I can say, because you try to gather some data, okay, to make some, you know, to understand and make inferences about a learner's process, learner's learning process, learning progress, and product of learning. But here is very much important. In my first question, ladies and gentlemen, I only try to understand whether our students, you know the answer of, you know, this question. But when it comes to language teaching, language education, we have to pay attention to these three dimensions, three P's of, I mean, language learning, I can say. I mean, it is process. We have to consider progress, product of learning. But mostly in traditional way, I can say that we try to deal with, I mean, the product of learning. But sometimes we forget, we ignore the other aspects. When it comes to the definition of evaluation, I can say that it refers to a wider process of interpreting data, but in assessment part, we are gathering, we are collecting data. But here, okay, in this issue, I mean, in this evaluation process, we are dealing with the wider process of interpreting data in order to make judgments. Here is very much important. I can say that we try to make, you know, judgments about a particular program, syllabus, or institution. It's a wider process, I can say. Next thing I can say, a test. It's an instrument, you know, kind of instrument or systematic procedure for measuring a sample of behavior, a sample of skill, I can say. Because when the language is the case, we cannot forget, okay, knowledge, skills, and abilities, language skills and abilities. And never forget this. We always keep these three things in mind. And they are, you know, knowledge, language knowledge, I can say, grammatical knowledge, vocabulary knowledge, whatsoever. Skills, I can say, language skills and abilities. We have to focus on these issues, I can say. And a test is an instrument or systematic procedure is a kind of procedure for measuring a sample of, you know, behavior. Then grading. When it comes to grading, is a kind of, yeah, we had some judgments, you know, we make some judgments. It is a process of translating this judgment into a grade. It might be a number, it might be a, you know, a letter, aldım, for example, or it is B8, like this. I mean, here are some terms, key terms, key concepts, I can say. We never forget the importance of, these issues. I mean, the differences between these terms, I can say. But here, it is very much important when I use measuring or evaluating or testing, I mostly refer to assessment aspect because it is very much important. Then these two terms, remember William and Black. Some of you I know in this group, they are interested in testing, evaluation. They are very much familiar with these people. Two people, William and Black in 1990s. They try to underline these terms. They did some research. They conducted some research. They wrote some important articles on this. Formative assessments. And the importance of formative assessment. First I can say that formative assessment takes place during learning process. It is very much important. It aims to give feedback to the students, because it focuses on, or it is dealing with the, process and progress part of language learning, language education, I can say. It provides information needed to improve learning and teaching. It gives us a kind of information. About our learning and teaching processes. I can ask this question here: why we still assess? Why we still use tests? Then we try to find out answers to this question. Next, I can say it is summative assessment. It takes place at the end of learning process, provides information for making judgments, evaluation, I can say, making judgments and decisions. You make a decision about the program, a syllabus, a kind of learning situation, I can say. Okay, this is the question. Ladies and gentlemen, why do we assess? This is the key question. But I try to focus on, I try to draw your attention to the third point here, supporting learning and teaching. The first one, we are assessing our students because we need accountability. For example, I conduct a lesson, I took a lesson, I teach a course. It is the length of course is 15 weeks, and then I try to give a kind of accountability, and I account for this process because I am the teacher of this course, and I do lots of I have already done many activities. I try to help my students learn language, etc. This is for accountability. It is for ladies and gentlemen. It gives some information about information to other people, stakeholders. Other students, parents. Administrators, etc. Then after having 4-year course, a 4-year program, when you finish our faculty, I have to give the students a document. It's a kind of certificate. I assess my students. They are all recorded in öğrencileri. Okay, registrar's office, I can say. Then it provides a background. It provides documents. Evidence for giving diploma to the students, I can say. Then, ladies and gentlemen, this part is very much important because by assessment, it provides, I get some feedback because I give feedback about my teaching methods. The materials I use. whatsoever. I mean, I do, some activities inside the classroom. The way I teach, I get feedback, whether they are effective or not. Whether they work inside the classroom, or whether I become useful for my students, or whether my techniques, methods, approach work, or make some contribution to the language development, language growth of the students. I also get some feedback about our students' learning process. I can say learning progress and learning product. I get some feedback. I give some support from assessment. I mean, evaluation, I can say. I mean, that's why we use, assessment procedures. Okay, next question, what we are going to assess then? Why we assess and what we are going to assess? When the language is the case, when we are interested in, language, I can say, what about, as I said before, I mean, at the very beginning of my presentation, I said that language knowledge, language skills, and skills and abilities, strategies, etc. What about skills both separate? It might be listening, reading. It consists of language learning or language education. It consists of teaching, listening. Okay, in an integrated way or not or separately, I can say. We can get some. We assess the development of our students. I mean, in language skills. Okay, the next part, I can say, next comes learning how to learn. Is we try to educate our students. We try to, how can I say that? We try to help our students to become autonomous, I can say, because autonomous learning comes into the fore. It comes into existence, I can say. What about attitudes? Attitudes of the students. What about communicative and social skills of the students? These are what we expect. What we expect to develop, or what we expect to, assess or evaluate, I can say. Then learning. Yeah, this is very key issue, because you adopt a kind of learning here, and it dictates how you, or it leads you how to assess your students. Learning, types of learning, what kind of learning your students are adopting inside the classroom. Do you see learning as acquiring knowledge? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, or do you see, or do you view learning as preparing for examinations? I think Turan Paker Hocam hears me. He tries to, tries to, process this part, or learning as, as preparing for examination, or learning as applying knowledge, kind of, I can say, or learning as explaining or relating phenomena. Okay, phenomena or understanding. Okay, or as learning as changing one's perspectives, attitudes. There is also personal development, I can say. What kind of learning? Because they all, I mean, these types of learning, I mean, lead us the type of assessment. Like I said, are you seeing learning as acquiring knowledge, or preparing for examinations, applying knowledge? It is also related to Bloom's taxonomy, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, this is very much important. Or yes, assessment for and assessment of learning, process, progress, product. We never forget this. Never forget these kind of things. Then how we assess them? Okay, this is very much important. Okay, here is paradigm shift, ladies and gentlemen. Language, it is a means of communication. Okay, then, ladies and gentlemen, there are some issues, there are some, parts of language education, but never forget that it's a means of communication. There are some areas, there are some domains, language domains, they are countable, measurable. For example, you can count or you can measure spelling mistakes of the students. Yeah, you can say your students that, I mean, you have already, you have already made, 12 or 15 spelling mistakes. You can say this. Well, what about the correct use of structures? I mean, whether you put the third person singular s or not. You can measure, ladies and gentlemen. You can count or you can measure factual knowledge. I can say, okay, you can measure, ladies and gentlemen, speed of reading, speaking, length of production, and there are other areas you can count. But here is important, I can say, countable parts, domains, I can say, cannot be measured. You cannot measure that, but assessed. You can assess. You can assess comprehension. You can assess communication, written or oral, appreciation, awareness, etc. Okay, language skills. I mean, speaking abilities, etc. Turn taking, turn giving, termination of speech. Okay, then. Actual performance of relevant, we need, okay, in language education, we need actual performance of relevant task rather than more abstract demonstration of knowledge, often by means of pencil and paper, test. Traditional test, I mean, alternative test. Yeah, we are going to make a distinction between these. I mean, it's a kind of paradigm shift, I can say. Work sample approach, we have cognitive achievement, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, here, okay, I mean, the learning activities, I mean, there are two aspects of language performance, ladies and gentlemen. We have weak sense and strong sense, language performance. Yeah, ladies and we also, question, as Najib said, we also question this part. I mean, language performance in an artificial context. We are just conducting role play activities. I'm the, how can I say that? I'm the shop assistant. I'm a customer. I'm doing kind of shopping. It's a kind of role play activity, but it is not real, I can say. But it changes, when it comes to the real life context. You are not that much, successful there. Performance in a real life context. Okay. There are many dimensions, several dimensions you have to consider while assessing your students, while you are evaluating your students. Okay. English as a second language or a foreign language, learning activities, you have to consider this aspect, whether you teach it, in Turkey we are teaching it as a foreign language, and what about learning activities and assessment activities? There is no clear-cut distinction here. Sometimes, we have some learning activities or, teaching activities. They might act as, a kind of assessment activities, because we are always, it is an ongoing process. We are giving, feedback to our students all the time. It depends on your purpose. Sometimes we are learning activities, assessment activities, etc. Okay, domains. Yeah, okay. 21st century, skills, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, social interaction. Okay, how we assess, okay, social interaction. Access to information. Yeah, it is very much important. Okay, great abundance of information around us. So we are surrounded by, okay, great abundance of information. ladies and gentlemen. Access to information, okay. Presentation of information knowledge, they are also very key, key issues. Appreciation of language, Gözde Hocam, how can you, appreciation of language, literature, culture, language, the relationship between this, the literature, how can you assess this part, I can say. When you're going to assess social interaction, Eda Hocam, here's me, I can say social interaction. There is learning part, and how we assess them. Okay, learning is a kind of, is it register in terms of register, whether it is formal, informal language, oral or written form, ladies and gentlemen. What kind of tools? Okay, what kind of instruments can I use to assess this? Am I going to use role play activities, small talk, social interactions, letters, group discussions, recording of speech? Is a kind of means you can use, or you can assess these students' social interaction. Email correspondences, I can say. Access to information, learning to learn, autonomous learning, ladies and gentlemen. Lifelong learning, books, resource books, internet, research tools, assessment, finding relevant information, writing questionnaires, how can I develop questionnaires, plan interviews, write interview questions, pick up information from media, different media means of, information, I can say. We have to consider this while, assessing. Presentation, how can I present this information? Processing information, producing new knowledge. Okay, how can I summarize? How can I make comparisons? I can say literature, surveys, diagrams, writing, recordings, oral presentation, PowerPoint presentations, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciation of literature, culture, and language. Learning, awareness level, metacognitive skills needed in previously discussed domains. We need some metacognitive skills. Naci Hocam, do we have any time limits or any constraints in terms of time?
No, Hocam, please feel free to continue as you like.
Okay, thank you. Then, before moving here, ladies and gentlemen, those who are interested in assessment, remember an article published in TESOL Quarterly. I think you mean what I mean here. Okay, then this article, in my eyes, maybe some of my colleagues can agree with me on this issue. This article, published by TESOL Quarterly. It was written by Brown and Hudson. It is alternatives in language education. Here, I can see the paradigm shift. Once, in traditional way, we divide, there are some, ladies and gentlemen, traditional techniques to assess, to evaluate or to test our students. We have alternative assessments. I know this distinction. It is acceptable to some extent, I can say. But after having read this article, I would like to advise those who are interested in new researchers, new teachers, or research assistants, etc. Then it is better. Okay, you had better read this article. I can say the paradigm shift. Later we can discuss this article. In this article, Brown and Hudson classify alternatives as three broad categories, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, the first one is selected response assessments. Because, as I said before, I would like to relate this issue to the first discussion. There are some measurable, countable, and uncountable issues, or in language assessment domains, I can say. Then they divide or they classified these, alternatives in language assessment as three broad categories. I can say they are selected response, constructed response, and, ladies and gentlemen, personal response assessments. I like this classification because it depends on my purpose. For example, I would like to assess my students' spelling mistakes. Why not? It is normal while teaching language. We need this. Then I can use a technique here. I mean, selected response, multiple choice. Okay, in selected response, as the name implies, ladies and gentlemen, we selected like matching. I can say that it's matching, kind of matching, multiple choice. Bir tane daha vardı ama okay, I try to remember that. I mean, in this article, yeah, it's kind of true false, for example. I use them. We use them. Please never, misunderstand me. Never misunderstand me. We can use. I do not mean you can't use these, traditional techniques. Multiple choice. True, false, matching, etc. You can. It depends on your purpose, because language education, language growth, language development consists of, knowledge. I need to test, our students, how can I say it? Knowledge. It might be factual knowledge, grammatical structures, etc. Then it might be true, false. Why not? At earlier stages, why not? And then multiple choice, to some extent, I can say. I can say that you can use multiple choice. Why not? It depends on your aim. What you are going to test, what you are going to assess. But step by step, constructed response. A bit we are, stepping up, the ladder, and then constructed response. I can say fill in blanks. You provide a kind of context, and then you try. It might be one word depending on the level of the students. It might be more than that. Short answer. Questions techniques. Closed test. Why not? Closed test. Then performance. Performance task. Why not? You can use these kind of things, and then, ladies and gentlemen, personal response. Okay, personal response. Assessments. There are conferences, peer and self and peer assessments, portfolios, etc. There was a list. It was proposed by Hertia Mercius. That there is a list. There were journals, blogs, questionnaires, etc. But in 1998, with this article, they added conferences, portfolios, peer and self assessment to the list. Next to checklist, etc. This is the paradigm shift, I can say. Yes, as I said before, step by step in the assessment part, in the productive part of language growth, language development, we need multiple sources of data. It's kind of triangulation, I can say. When it comes to alternatives in language assessment, what about involving learners? Involving learners in decision making about assessment. This is important. self-assessment, portfolio assessment, peer assessment, projects. As I said before, performance-based, assessments, observation, conferences, etc. You can make the list longer. I mean, you can add more, alternative ways of assessment here. Okay, what is the contribution of using? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is important. What is the contribution of this issue? I mean, having alternative assessments, in language classroom. What it provides, what this notion, I mean, this idea brings out. I mean, first of all, by using, because it is very much important. It is also called comprehensive assessment of comprehensive language development. Comprehensive assessment. We need comprehensive assessment. It's one of the key terms here, concepts here. Comprehensive assessment we need because this area consists of different domains, ladies and gentlemen. We have to consider process, progress, product, not only in traditional way, you only focus on product, but here two dimensions are added, process and progress. What helps? I mean, what is the contribution of using, okay, or making use of, I mean, alternative assessment models or ways in language class? They require students to perform, produce, and do something inside the classroom. I mean, they do something. They use real-world contexts, simulations. They are not intrusive in that they extend the day-to-day classroom activities. It allows students to be assessed on what they normally do in everyday classroom, in class every day. They use tasks that represent meaningful instructional activities. They are much meaningful. Focus on process as well as product. Tap here is important. Tap into higher level thinking. I mean, higher level thinking, process, problem solving skills. Later, sorry. Okay, how can I move it? Sorry. Sorry. Okay, provide information. Yes, here is important. Yeah, issue. It's very much important, I can say. We gather information about our students, strengths and weaknesses. We get to know our students. Otherwise, they are an individual inside the classroom. They are a member of this classroom. Sometimes we don't know our students. They are multiculturally sensitive and properly administered. Ensure that people, not machines, do the scoring using human judgment. Here I would like to say that with the advent of technology, with the introduction of technology, I can say that, I mean, there are some programs, they evaluate or they assess their writing pieces, writing a task. More or less, they have the same scores. I read an article on that, and it was very much surprising for me. Encourage, this is important, encourage open disclosure of standards. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, when I use alternative assessment as a learner, I know standards. In which standards am I going to be assessed? On which standards, I know the rubric. I know in which areas I'm going to be assessed. I know the rating criteria. It is not hidden. It is not, I can say it is open. Call upon teachers. We have new roles, ladies and gentlemen. Call upon teachers to perform new instructional and assessment roles. Later, I will talk about it a bit. It's, our changing roles as a teacher, I can say, with the introduction of this. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I do not want to, I do not want to give details, too much, too many details, I can say. Self-assessment, more or less, you are very much, familiar with this issue, self-assessment. I mean, you can say the involvement of learners, because we would like our students, we ask our students, we want our students to get involved in this assessment process. We would like to see their, involvement here. Is the involvement of learners in identifying, yeah, okay, ladies and gentlemen, we decide, we make decisions about the standards and or the criteria to apply to their work, and making judgments about the extent to which they have met these criteria or standards. All self-assessment here is important. Again, I mean, reflection is very much important. We are, as a learner, we are learning how to reflect on our, work, ladies and reflection. On action, in action, you remember that in Schoen's, yeah, I-10, remember that? Okay. All self-assessment involves reflection. Not all reflections. Sorry for the, spelling mistake here. You can count. You can measure my, spelling mistakes here if you like to. Lead to self-assessment. Self-assessment includes, ladies and gentlemen, here includes. It's important, a judgmental perspective. I make some judgments about my own, language progress. Okay, what is the aim? Students get information about what they have learned, where they have made mistakes, how they have achieved learning. Yeah, it provides, feedback. Teachers give feedback, and our students provide us some feedback, ladies. Advantages, okay, can be designed to be administered relatively quickly, inevitably involve students indirectly or directly in assessment processes. Such involvement may help students understand what it means to learn a language autonomously. You can also, you become, autonomous, learners. Okay, yeah, you involve your learners. I mean, learners get involved in their own learning. How? By providing, we can help them to join this process by providing a clear course outline with requirements, by asking learners what has taken place in the course, by letting pupils, learners decide in groups what components they want to be included. For example, you get together with the student, decide the criteria, standards. Okay, I would like you have already known these things. Asking groups to present, assessment scale, letting the learners vote for the scale they find most valid, by asking the learners to assess themselves according to the scale, by having assessment tutorials with the learners. You come together and you do some. It is well, we have already said this. Okay, portfolios. One of the controversial, areas, I can say, whether we use portfolios. Okay, I think it takes time, longer time. It is too much load, too much job, too much work. We don't dare, we don't, we don't want to, ladies and gentlemen, we don't want to do these, to do these kind of things because it is time. Mostly we think that it is time consuming. Yeah, I don't want to focus on, I don't want to too many details regarding, purposeful collection of any aspects of students' work that includes a story of their achievements, skills, efforts, abilities, and particular contributions to a particular class. But here, I would like to underline these three dimensions. What are the benefits of, advantages of using? First, ladies and gentlemen, they strengthen students' learning. We can also discuss the details of Bir ses açık herhalde. Arkadaşlar bir ses geliyor. Okay.
Hocam, this is the kind of misfortune of technology. So I think our team sort out the problem. Yes, hocam.
Hocam,
Hocam,
sesiniz
Hocam, I guess you muted yourself accidentally.
Is it? Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay.
Now yes.
Strengthen students' learning. Enhance. Okay, they enhance portfolios, enhance the teacher's role, and improving testing processes. Three broad categories, I can say. Main characteristics of portfolio, friends. Yeah, you can say learn is involved with choice of content. We come together with the students. They receive. We can make revisions. They can get feedback. It is also related to zone of ZPD, zone of proximal development, kind of. Okay, it is very much important by Vygotsky, I can say. Reflections, as I said before, you reflect on your learning process, progress, etc. It is also related to metacognition while developing your portfolios, I can say. Okay, we always discuss this issue. What are the components of, what should be there? I mean, what components a portfolio, should have, I can say. We have introduction. From time to time, at times in my teaching practices, I can say I help my students develop portfolios. They first make an introduction. I mean, who, what, they introduce their portfolio. We have, compulsory part, core of the course, reflections on process and product. They have also, students have personal choices, individual choice from a proposed list, reflections of choice, process, product. We have also, reflections on learning process with the portfolio and conclusion. I learned many things, ladies and gentlemen. I learned many things from this conclusion part. Message to the reader, message to the teacher, reader. I learned, the drawbacks of my course, strengths and weaknesses of my course, they really reflected on this, what they expected at first, in introduction part, our students also wrote their expectations. But at the end, they gave some reflections. They reflected on to what extent their expectations have been met, or have been met in conclusion part. It's a kind of message to the reader. Peer assessment is a process of students, peers giving feedback on each other. But there are some, studies whether students, favor this kind of assessment. Some studies show that, they like teacher assessment. There are some studies, yeah. Okay. Based on their communicative values. Help students develop, you can see, the details here, encourage students take responsibility for their own learning, promote lifelong learning by helping students to evaluate their own and their peer achievements realistically, I can say. You can see project-based learning, suitable for assessing mixed ability groups, allow for the integration of language skills and creativity. can be included as part of portfolio assessment and are a good way of integrating other subjects. Content, KTUDELL, I can say. In KTUDELL, you can integrate projects, language and skill integrated, subject integrated area. I already mentioned, performance-based assessment in real life. I do not want to repeat them again, ladies and gentlemen. Advantages here. 3 requirements of performance assessment. Okay, we need, here, if you are using, ladies and gentlemen, performance-based assessment, examiners should perform some sort of task-based approach. The task should be as authentic as possible. As I said before, weak sense and strong sense. The performances are typically scored by qualified. We need some qualified raters here. We need this. If you exploit, performance-based assessment, we need some qualified raters. Rater reliability, intra-rater reliability, inter-rater reliability, etc. There are some drawbacks as in other areas. We have some drawbacks. There are some deficiencies of this. It is difficult to implement. Validity and reliability issues, scoring issues. Piloting, using the logistics, interpretation, raters. There are many issues. They are all involved in this area. Development, administration, and training raters, conducting these rating sessions, reporting scores should be considered carefully. There are some drawbacks, ladies and gentlemen. We have observations. We can observe, especially in class, in class assessment for speaking. We need observations as teachers. Checklist can help here. We take notes and they should be filed carefully. Conferencing, another way. It was added by Hudson and Brown and Hudson. We can learn many things about students' learning styles, learning processes, and strategies. It's a good way of getting to know our students because we have an interview, we have a conference with the students. We get to know our students. It also develops the collaboration. Between student, teacher, student to student. Okay, and it is good for speaking skills. Okay, scoring guide. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 types of rubrics, 2 types. Analytic one to give more feedback to the students, detailed feedback to the students. It is preferred. Analytical one. We have holistic. When I asked one of my professors, he said, well, what do you think about rubrics? Is it good to use analytic one or holistic one? He said that ladies and gentlemen, the simpler the better. If it is simple, it is better to assess the students. His answer was the simpler the better. Why rubric? We use rubrics to assess this. Okay, they can be used students for self-evaluation, peer evaluation. We can use rubrics for our own, assessments as teachers. Okay, what will happen next? Current and future trends in language assessment. The advent of computers, advent of technology, pandemic, ladies and gentlemen, we are using this kind of instruments a lot. Technology a lot. Two important, assessment types here: computer-based and adaptive, or assessment. I have already had this, computer adaptive. It's kind of, vocabulary test. When you complete one test, preliminary test, you have next one. If you cannot do well on this test, you don't move on to next stage. computer is very sensitive on this issue. Computer, İYDS, İALS, remember that. Okay. Today, we need, ladies and gentlemen, we need new domains. Okay, new domains were have been incorporated into, projected into language assessment. World Englishes, which English are you going to, while developing tests, while assessing your students' speaking skills, what about World Englishes? You have to consider this. Jenkins, you remember the Jenkins and the other David Crystal's, article, books. Which English? And this is one of the most important issues. Then, ladies and gentlemen, I can say, what about team assessment? New areas. We have to. We tested. Language teachers should consider this. What about team assessment? What about collaboration? The contribution of collaboration, contribution of people to the development of a project. I can say collaboration. What about grouping? Group of people. We come together, work as group. Joint projects. We have joint projects. Okay, we have new skills and how to regulate. We have to consider all these new issues: group learning, joint papers, writing joint papers, especially in academic settings. In business world, you need teamwork, etc. Yes, friends, we have to consider all these issues, all these domains. You can see the injection of, inclusion of new domains here. New skills, I can say, digital skills, digital. We are talking about digital assessment, assessment, digital portfolios. Ladies and gentlemen, years ago I visited the Netherlands. Especially teachers complained the overload of digital, portfolios. They thought that it was too much work. It was very difficult to deal with, digital portfolios. We are always giving feedback, making some revisions, timely, I can say, timely revisions, timely feedback, etc. Okay, yes, I would like to have some, last words, Ladies and gentlemen, we need, as I said before, comprehensive assessment of comprehensive language learning. It is very much detailed. We need to use multiple assessment tools. We need data, assessments, gathering data, to make some decisions, to make some judgments. We use multiple assessment tools, gathering evidence for effort, progress, product, assistance within the learner's ZPD. Here you have to keep learners active. Learners is taught to be metacognitive. They have to use some metacognitive strategies, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, this is the end of my presentation. This written presentation. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I also planned some kind of task, but it's a little bit late, I think. I would like to hear, I would like to have your contributions, comments, whatsoever. We can share. Okay, I would like to thank you. I would like to thank for your, patience. I can say your being, being part of this, discussion.
Şevki Hocam, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Very valuable information, and you presented this information in a very brief and in a memorable, digestible the manner. So I'm sure in the seminars serve the purpose, which means we increase in awareness about the possibilities of having a different, let's say, assessment tools. Şevki Hocam, from the very beginning, made a very distinction between the assessments and also evaluation. So he said assessment refers to set of the process, and while evaluation refers to some kind of, let's say, test and grading. And also, he further continued saying dividing assessment into formative, which takes place during the, let's say, the learning process, and also in summative assessment, which takes place at the end of the, let's say, semester learning process. And then Şevki Hocam continued with one question: why do we assess? And also he also tried to answer the question: why do we assess? What's the purpose behind the assessment? But one point I find very, very crucial, and I myself benefit a lot. That is the learning. So the kind of learning, what do you understand learning? What kind of meaning do you give learning? What learning means to you? How do you identify learning? Or what learning involves? Because depending on the concept you have around learning, so you make a choice about the assessments. For example, and he made the point very clear, does learning mean as a kind of acquiring knowledge or preparing for exam or others? So depending on the answer that you are likely to give to this question, so you will determine the type of an assessment, which is very critical, which means that all of us and all young and let's say teachers need to assess and need to question their understanding of learning. And as far as I remember, Hocam continued talk about the language as a means of communication, also propose some tools how to assess language as a means of communication. And so it mentioned the social interaction, role play, letters, group discussion, and so on. And it's very good, instead of talking about the traditional paper pencil, let's say, testing, and Hocam devoted much of his time and his lecture to the assessment, alternative assessment, which includes self-assessment, peer portfolio, and so on. So, and also talk about the computer-based assessment, and also the computer-adapted assessment, which seems to be emerging in line with the advent of technology, as Hocam suggested. And also the final point Şevki Hocam made in his presentation, that's the word English. So having said all this, so we need to think about the concept of word English. So we need to adjust in our assessment tools and methods and choice to the concept of world English. Okay, and now I open the floor for questions, but let me remind you one more thing again. So the experience of our young teachers and fellows is as important as any idea, as any theory suggested by the so-called and the big figures. Please feel free to share your common practice, your experience that you do in class, whether you have some negative experience or whether you have something which we have not talked, which has not been mentioned here, and all the things, that practices and implementation, the experience that you have in your class with your students are as valuable as a theory. So again, we have some guests from other discipline. It's perfectly acceptable to switch between Turkish and English. There's no problem. So anyone desperate to make any contribution first, and then we have some very qualified people from the discipline from ELT. I know them, but I would like to give first the priority to young fellows and young teachers or our graduates or undergraduates. And I'm very happy to hear their voice here at this platform. Evet, biraz cesaret.
Evet, bekliyoruz hocam.
Naci hocam, can I ask a question? Onur Kavak.
Yes,
I
Onur.
can't. Okay, I can't myself.
Onur, first, I mean, well, could you introduce first yourself to the audience, because some know some people, but we need to know all the people here on this platform, please.
Okay, good evening, dear professors and colleagues and young friends. This is Onur Kavak from Medipol University. I've been teaching English for 15 years,
Yeah.
and also I'm one of the first graduates of KTUDELL Technical University. This is a proud for me, and I have been carrying it for many years.
Mhm.
Actually, Naci hocam said young fellows, young teachers. I can't. I'm not in this category anymore.
Yes,
But
yes.
Yeah, you are.
I want to ask a question to Şevki hocam. Actually,
Yeah.
my question is not directly related to your presentation, hocam, but there's a question in my mind regarding our national language assessment exams, YÖKDİL and TYT. So, hocam, we are using this test for many purposes, from academic recruitment and transfer. But we know that this test just includes vocabulary knowledge and grammar. But when these teachers, I mean, the academicians or these master students come to university, when it comes to producing their language skills, especially speaking, in the conferences which I witnessed many times, and I felt really sorry about this. And these teachers really get difficulties in producing language skills. But unfortunately, our national center, really insist on carrying that kind of exam. I think it's an old-fashioned exam. So maybe for academicians, for other departments, maybe for other teachers, it is a kind of easy way of getting a grammar test and then after being recruited. But I really like to learn your opinion about this, hocam. Do you think that it's the proper way of assessing an academician's English?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your.
Okay, you're welcome. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, in testing, there are two ways of assessing one student's knowledge or abilities. Bu arada isminiz hocam, pardon?
Onur Kavak.
Onur, pardon. Onur. Okay, Onur hocam. Yeah, it is a little bit, it depends on the number of people who take this exam. I mean, because when you implement some productive, I mean, when you assess, how can I say that, speaking, listening, and writing skills, I mean, it takes very, very long time, because number of the people, in an exam, at least 200,000 people are taking this exam. But it is a bit time consuming. There are also subjectivity issues, sometimes they make some objections to the results, and it is very much difficult to deal with this kind of, external issues, I can say, regarding the test. Then I think that it can be done, it can be achieved. But we need more, more infrastructure. We need more centers to implement this exam, to administer this kind of integrated exam. But they think that they assess these skills, these productive skills, indirectly. But there are some, dialogues, you have to complete the dialogues in this exam. There are some odd one outs, paragraph development, etc. But in the following 5 years or 10 years, we will have this kind of centers. I can say that we can administer this kind of test and this kind of assessment, which includes, productive parts, as in, TOEFL, TOEFL type, standardized tests, I can say, high stake exams. But I think that it is a bit related to the number of the participants, number of the test takers, probably. We also consider the objectivity issue. I mean, because when you have some kind of speaking exam, I can say that there will be lots of objections. There are lots of petitions. It is a little difficult to deal with this problem at the moment, but in the near future we can overcome this problem.
Hocam, thank you very much. Onur, thank you very much for the question, which pave way for the good explanation. But could you allow me to ask one question? And though Şevki Hocam, said what could be said in relation to assessment evaluation, and he left no issue untouched. But I was wondering whether there is anyone among us, among our participants and the followers, who does something which has not been mentioned in the lecture, because so this is something, an extra, let's say, benefit we may have. Anyone to share the kind of experience?
Naci Hocam, I missed one point. Can I make an addition to this?
Of course, Hocam.
Okay. The quality of a test, I didn't mention this. The quality of test, what makes a test high quality? I mean, I mentioned a bit, but not a lot, I can say. Validity, okay, validity, reliability, practicality of test. Onur, are you there? Onur Hocam?
Yes,
okay. I mean, it is also related to the practicality of the test, I mean, because when you have this kind of face-to-face speaking exams or listening exams, and it takes very long time. It is not that much practical to deal with that number of participants. It is also related, but it is an old-fashioned idea, I can say. But it should be done. I mean, computers today, computers can assess your speaking skills or writing skills. Why not? It can be done. Practicality issues, ladies and gentlemen, validity, reliability, practicality, moderation, okay, checking, piloting or checking the test with another pair of eyes, I can say, usefulness and authenticity, real life relevance of the test, I mean, it is also related to your question, you have a test, whether it is related to your real life use of language. I mean, yeah, we have to consider these 5 issues, reliability, validity, practicality, purposefulness, or sometimes it is called, purpose, authenticity, etc. Well, or, I forget that, backwash effect. I mean, backwash effect or washback effect, whether it is negative or positive. Yani, öğretme süreçleri üzerindeki etkisi ne arkadaşlar? Hani siz sınıfta speaking, if you cannot administer speaking exams, you cannot teach it. You cannot. It is a kind of negative backwash effect on your teaching and learning process.
Hocam, thank you very
much.
May I
add something?
Hocam, I'll come to you, Hocam. But this program is being recorded, so once you, you can watch the same program again. But I suggest you go and find the Turan Hocam's presentation, and he did some months ago. So about the similar issue. So I'm sure you will have a comprehensive, let's say, picture in your mind about the assessment and evaluation, in particular the assessment of language skills, and in particular washback effect. So when I hear the word washback, Turan Hocam,
he's my teacher.
I can't help remembering you, right?
He is my teacher, I know. Sorry, teacher, I forget the backwash effect.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, now we have very distinguished French scholars from the field, from the ELT, who have been in this kitchen for years and years, and spending a lot of time and committed themselves to this profession. And We have Recep Hocam and also Turan Hocam from Pamukkale University. Yes, let's start. Let's hear from Turan Hocam.
Yeah, washback effect is really important because it affects the learning and teaching process either positively or negatively. So in terms of Onur's question, I mean, how does YÖKDİL or YDS exam affect learning? Well, I call them, the main problem with them is that validity problem, because they represent only 25% validity, which is only reading, no listening, no writing, no speaking. I mean, Şevki Hocam raised the issue of number of people, but if you just, have exam centers as it is done with PET, what is it?
Cambridge.
TOEFL, Cambridge.
TOEFL.
There is a new exam. Recep Hocam, what was it in your school?
PT, Pearson test of
Yeah,
English.
Pearson test. Okay. So if you just open some centers in the School of Foreign Languages, so you don't have to test, thousands of people at a time. I mean, they can take the test with certain intervals. So they will just apply for the centers, and each center will give the test as it is given, like TOEFL. And about the objectivity, I mean, for receptive skills, you can use objective tests, but for the productive skills, you can use rubrics, and we should start it, because the negative washback effect of the existing test at the moment is that I have come across some people who got really high scores in YÖKDİL or in YDS exam, but they cannot communicate simply because they cannot hear you, because it is just based on reading comprehension, but nothing else, nothing. And I always give this example to my students. I had a friend from medical faculty who was a professor in Çukurova University. He got 3 scores more than I did when we took the KPDS exam. But when he opened his mouth in speaking English, you cannot understand anything. It's not intelligible, but he can understand whatever he reads. So imagine that that person is going to be sent abroad to represent Turkey. He won't be able to communicate because of the way he speaks, okay? But he scored really better in this text. So if you use wrong measurement, you will have wrong products. So assessment is very important here. So I always give this example. If you use, let's say, a liter instead of meter in assessing, let's say, table, then you will have wrong product, and what you produce will not fit into what you expect it to fit. Okay. So that's one thing. Another thing is, yes, I like alternative assessment. We should increase them because of positive washback effect, because it encourages students to produce, and also
do something.
Especially in Turkey, we deal with low-level students, low-level students like A1, A2, and we rarely have B1 students in Ministry of Education, maybe in some private schools. In that case, we should take into account the interlanguage levels of the students. It's inevitable. So if you just use metric system, as it happens in grammar-based exam, so you expect your students to produce with 100% accuracy, which is impossible for A2 level or B1 level students. So we should encourage them to produce as much as they can, like one word, one chunk, one phrase. As long as it is meaningful, we should integrate reading and writing, or listening and writing, reading and speaking, listening and speaking, etc. But also we should tolerate their interlanguage level as it happens with word Englishes. So that's all I'd like to share for the moment. Thank you.
Okay, Hocam, thank you very much for your thoughts and ideas and experience and information. Recep Hocam, would you like to say hello? Or...
Yeah, okay. Hi to everybody. Şevki Hocam has really, outlined the framework of testing and assessment and evaluation. And it's really, it has a lot of messages for everybody. I mean the new the prospective teachers of English here and the experts, and also the practicing teachers here. Thank you very much, Şevki Hocam.
You're welcome, Hocam. Thank you. Thank you.
Elaborative information. I'd like to take the discussion to another point here. We have here a number of directors like Fahmi Hocam. I'm sure there are some, maybe Onur, you're also the kind of director in your university. And I am also the director. Turan Hocam, Naci Hocam, you have all been, directors for the schools of education. So my question is, in the light of what Şevki Hocam said concerning assessment, and don't you think that we don't offer formative assessment, summative assessment, alternative assessment, techniques in different language skills? What I mean is, in fact, in the schools of foreign languages, we apply almost all of these, different, ideas and the different techniques. And I'm happy to say that. And Fahmi Hocam would agree with me. Maybe some other directors would agree with me. And recently, we received a complaint from some of the students. And in fact, we have been complaints to the higher authorities and claiming that we are giving them a lot of performance-based assessments. And in one of the classes, the teacher gave 13 grades, and which was taken as a kind of complaint. I mean, we are doing our best to offer alternative assessments. That includes portfolio keeping, that includes observation, the self-assessment, peer assessment, and everything. But unfortunately, I mean, this is regarded by the students the kind of something wrong. In fact, what we are doing is right. And then maybe we have here the kind of language teachers in the ministries, schools as well. I don't know what they are doing. I mean, are they maybe they can also contribute to the discussion here. Are they giving these different types of alternative assessments? I mean, is it just based upon pen and the paper test, or do they give them kind of, let's say, presentations, or let's say preparing anything on their own? This is another issue. Şevki Hocam has offered us very good ideas for the prospective teachers. If we know that there are some, student teachers here, they should take whatever, Şevki Hocam said, Turan Hocam, has said, and professional into the professional lives. Maybe, what do you think, Şevki Hocam? Do you think that giving alternative assessment, formative assessment, too much, something wrong?
Good question. Yeah, it is good question, Hocam, but not sure. Yeah, it is difficult. It is difficult to implement. It is difficult, but we need it. Otherwise, we cannot assess. Okay, we need to monitor our students' development. I mean, what about processes then? We forget the progress. And mostly, we base our assessment on knowledge, information, and then structures, grammar, reading, and we miss some parts. I can say we miss some parts. I mean, we have negative backwash facts here, negative one. I can say.
When you do your job correctly, then that can be taken as something threatening students.
Yeah.
Maybe passing, not nothing else.
Recep Hocam, may I add something? Sure. I mean, then you should explain your students what your objectives are. whether it is going to be performance-based or knowledge-based. So when they take the exam, they should know that the exam, the assessment will be performance-based. Why? Because that's your objective. Okay. So the objectives should be explained at the very beginning when you introduce your syllabus or curriculum to your students for each level, for each module. So the students should not be disappointed at the end, because they have some culture, and usually they come from multiple choice culture. So that's what they expect in the School of Foreign Languages or in the ELT department as well. But at the very beginning, when you introduce the course, if you introduce the assessment types as well, and their weight, like whether it's going to be alternative assessment or whether you are going to have any presentation, assessment based on their presentation, article review, book review, etc., then you have a safe background, I say. Whether they complain, whether even write a petition to higher authorities, if you just write down your assessment types at the very beginning in your syllabus, then you are safe. Thank you. And by
our
the way,
assessment criteria are, available.
Hocam?
It is on the website and everywhere. I've just
Yeah.
brought this to everybody's attention. Just, we know what we are doing, and some students know that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Turan Hocam. I would like to say a few things about Turan Hocam points. Sometimes I feel we go, between the excellent points. Now we are sometimes in favor of some sort of assessment when they are, let's say, around. So we feel guilty when you use paper and pencil tests. But the word that we need to articulate, appropriateness and the relevant. As long as Turan Hocam indicated, paper pencil test is appropriate, is the best choice, is relevant to the purpose, the context, the objective, that's fine. No one should feel guilty and odd and awkward about using any kind of, let's say, assessment or evaluation, let's say tool. As long as they are appropriate, as long as they are relevant and related to the purpose. Thank you. We have Fehmi Hocam. We have Fehmi Hocam, and then, yes, Fehmi Hocam. Would you like to say anything from Fehmi Hocam? Yes.
Şevki Hocam, thank you for this nice presentation.
Teşekkür ediyorum hocam. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for your participation.
Assessment and evaluation is one of the most hated discussions in EL. On the surface, the topic seems to be familiar to all of us, but the ingredients are very much elusive. So it was a good opportunity for us to brush up our memories of assessment and evaluation. And it is my belief that the discussions and the questions will never cease here, because we have some specific problems with every student, learning and teaching environment. And Recep Hocam, you have asked a question. Well, assessment and evaluation, my belief is this is something which cannot be left to our students. So, if we think that we are doing the right thing, we should keep on doing it. So since all language abilities are performative abilities, that we perform writing, we perform
speaking,
these are performances. I think performative, or an assessment based on projects will be a good way of doing this. Thank you again, Hocam. It was very nice to have you here.
Fehmi Hocam, thank you very much. For those who may not know Fehmi Hocam is currently the director of School of Foreign Language Yabancı Dil Okulu at Karadeniz Teknik University. And Hocam, thank you very much for being with us and for the feedback on the contribution. So we have Turgay Hocam from Ordu University.
Turgay Han.
Turgay Han.
Good evening, everybody.
Turgay, are you around? Are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you. I'm with you. I don't know whether you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
We can.
Great. Şevki Hocam, thank you very much for your...
You're welcome. You're welcome. I know you are interested in the assessment. I know.
Yes, it takes my attention very much, especially recently. But now I want to direct your attention to scoring other than testing environment, because language assessment, especially performance assessment, we call it as direct assessment as well, is problematic. Especially scoring writing skills and speaking skills. Is problematic. Why? Because there are multiple factors that affect its reliability, validity, and fairness. We select students for Erasmus program by using of their speaking and writing performances, and also we have components of a proficiency test for prep class students, exams, not only for classroom-based assessment. So it is problematic. Why? Because there are several factors that contribute to reliability, validity, and fairness. All these three terms are interrelated. And teaching and testing are also interrelated. We are talking about a language teaching program. We need to consider 50% of language teaching methodology and 50% of language assessment. If it's not fair, if it is not reliable, then our teaching is not complete. If we are talking about direct assessment, because that's problematic one, the factors may be related to raters and students' performance and the task we use. Especially the raters are not trained to score students' writing performances and speaking performances. And therefore, this leads to unreliable and unfair judgments of
teachers, raters.
That contribute to their failure sometimes in the future careers. I've checked out the published or unpublished MA theses and doctoral dissertations. Very few studies, in fact, investigated the issue of language testing and scoring in Turkey, in Turkish universities. I think this is the weakness of our field.
Weakness, okay.
Yeah, okay. The weakness of our field.
Gap, you know, there is a gap. Yeah, I know.
There is a gap, and our scholars, our faculty members, I think, need to direct their attention to mostly to language assessment issues, because language teaching and testing are interrelated, and we mostly forget the of language teaching programs. These are my suggestions. I don't know what can we do to increase the graduate studies and take our students' attention to the language assessments. I think we need to grow more language assessment professionals in this field, especially in Turkey. This is the weakness of our field.
Okay.
Yeah.
Turgay, I can see some efforts, you know, I mean, some attempts, you know, especially students in the doctorate program, they have tendency to, you know, to conduct, to do some kind of research on this issue. I think there is there has been a trend. I mean, there is an inclination to have this kind of, you know, studies. But I'm very much hopeful. You know, I see these developments in recent years.
Hocam, thank you very much, Turgay Hocam, for the very valuable feedback and contribution. And now we have Dr. Hasan Salamel, I know in person, who has great interest in testing, and Hasan Hocam also has been running testing course and at
The faculty?
yes, I mean also offering a course to MA students. So Hassan, I'll be happy if you have any comment or elaboration.
Hocam, thank you very much. And Şevki Hocam, thank you very much for the nice presentation.
Thank you Hocam.
So assessment is when I look at the publications, usually the adjectives that usually describe, assessment decisions, they usually go in this way. It is not easy, it is difficult, it is challenging, it is a thorny issue. And yes, so usually it is it's an issue that brings with many challenges. And I agree with Şevki Hocam. Recently we have, there have been new challenges in this domain. The new challenges are, I think, about assessment literacy. And not all teachers develop a proper degree of assessment literacy. Even though we devote much of our time for assessment, as Ayse Lee suggested, we need to burn the midnight oil for assessing students' performance. Sometimes we cannot make informed decisions about assessment. We hear a lot of new words, new concepts, new procedures, including portfolio, digital portfolio, and so on. But about assessment, we need to develop a proper degree of assessment literacy at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And recently we have, there are new challenges. For example, the COVID-19 situation is yet another challenge. And I think we need to develop some more skills, 21st century skills, as you have pointed out. And for example, email correspondence, so how to measure that one. So we need to make a lot of decisions to make our teaching practices aligned with the assessment, or assessment alignment with the teaching practices. So that makes it a thorny issue at the end of the day. And we need to measure twice and cut once, they say. So making such informed decisions is not easy at the end of the day. And one thing, so Peter Drucker, it is associated with Drucker, you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So having informed decisions is not something easy. And I need to highlight this. We have more challenges coming ahead, as far as I see. For example, we are not seeing the students. We need to assess process. We need to make more informed decisions about the students' performance, and students' performance comes at a cost. I mean, assessing students' performance comes at a cost. We need to do a lot of time. And we need to integrate a lot of issues. For example, when I was integrating drama, Perihan Hocam is, I think, is also here. So I made use of her checklist. Thank you. I would like to thank her. And I would like to take this as an opportunity. So we need to make a lot of decisions, and we need to use a lot of reasoning behind those decisions, even for very simple things. For example, portfolio. I've been using portfolio, and the point is, I discovered some points that really work well with portfolio after a few years after I started, using it. For example, integration of reflection in the portfolio. So that is something crucial. It is because if you don't use that reflection thing, and it turns out to be a dossier, a collection of students' performance. So those critical decisions must be internalized by all teachers, and I think it is going to be a painful and a long-term process at the end of the day. So this is what I see, hocam.
Okay, it is very much informative, hocam. Thank you, good contribution.
Aslan hocam, thank you very much for a small, let's say, presentation, which I like.
Nice.
Which I find quite to the point. Now we are having Özgür Şahan. Özgür hocam, could you introduce yourself first to the audience? Some of us may know you, but yes.
Hello hocam, let me try starting my video. I think you can see me now. I'm Özgür Şahan from Yozgat Bozok University, working at the Department of ELT as an assistant professor. Maybe some of you
I know. You know.
have known me, have seen me in conferences. So like assessment, testing, these are very controversial issues. So prior to my position here at Yozgat, I was working as an assistant director at a foreign languages school at Bursa Technical University. And so I was also especially regarding performance assessments, training my colleagues. So there are a couple of issues that needs to be considered globally and locally. For example, as Turan hocam mentioned, while making decisions regarding testing and evaluation, it is important to take course objectives, course aims into consideration, because randomly making decisions about assessment is not quite a solid way of testing students' performance, because your assessment, how can I say, activities, assessment decisions should serve the purpose of your program. For example, there we had engineering students, and after conducting a needs analysis and situation analysis, we determined our assessment tools. Because at that institution, department teachers, employers in the sector were in the expectation of engineering students to be capable of making effective presentations. As such, we were integrating presentations into our system from the very beginning of the program. Even elementary students were supposed to make presentations as part of their performance assessments. That's the one thing, and it's a local issue, because every program, even if School of Foreign Languages on paper is serving the same purpose, there are different dynamics due to the characterization of the departments and expectations of the university. And we have global issues such as rater training, item preparation,
scoring,
and scoring. And for example, keeping the standards at the institution in terms of rater reliability is quite difficult, because staff members may be quite resistant to teacher training activities. I have seen such reactions. So I'm 40 years old. I've been teaching like for 15 years. Who the hell are you? You're younger than me. You're less experienced than me. Like, how can you give me training? But I have PhD in this field. I have done lots of research, etc. So you need to make sure that training and standardization at an institution for the sake of providing fair assessments is quite important. And these activities should be, how can I say, continuous. That's why we have CPDUs, not PDUs, continuous professional development. And it's not a one-shot action. So you cannot say that, okay, at the beginning of the year, I gave training to the raters and they are all now standardized, they are all reliable. That's not the issue. because time is an important factor interfering reliability, scholar reliability, because the effect of training may not last long. As such, you need to provide trainings on regular basis to your staff members so that you can have standardized actions and scorings.
Okay,
Thank you.
Özgür Hocam, thank you very much. So it's not surprising to hear that. And some people, there's some people who are always resisting and who are not receptive, who are against the new things. So it's quite something that we all know, we all face in our institutions, unfortunately. But let's focus on young generation. So I think we can do something for the young generation, for the young people, for the prospective teachers, or teachers who will be teaching in the future. Again, thank you very much for a very valuable information and comment, Özgür Hocam. So please, let's continue. I feel guilty because I may not articulate the name, or please, this is a platform where one has equal right to say, to ask, to make any contribution as they like.
Hocam, maybe I can read the question in the chat box.
Yes. So, Özlem, this is just the right time to come to stage. Please, go ahead, please.
We have one question from Yusuf Mutlu. Şevki Hocam, he asks that, I remembered the presentation assignments I had in high school when you say conferences. What do you think about giving students presentation assignments? Well, those kind of assignments help me pretty much about confidence. I would like to hear your opinion about it.
Yeah, I support this idea, especially to develop speaking skills. Yeah, why not? Presentation skills. Yeah. But first of all, we should know how to deal with this. I mean, we need some rubric, we need some, we can also give feedback, enough feedback to the students. I really appreciate these kind of, presentations. Otherwise, it turns out to be, lesson turns out to be a grammar-based lesson. Anyway, I like this, I think students personally, get involved in this process of language development.
Okay.
It's good idea.
Okay. Any other question from the YouTube channel, Özlem? Or any comment or any feedback, not necessarily question?
We have hellos and greetings from universities, especially Atatürk University.
Yeah, okay.
No other questions so far.
So we owe a very big special thanks to Atatürk University and to the students, and they have been with us in, almost for a year, and I extend my personal warm welcome and thanks to Atatürk University again. Okay, another comment, another question?
Well, I'd like to add something, if you permit. So my suggestion to our students or new teachers is that if you test for skills, it will have positive washback effect. Students will get ready for this. But if you ignore testing any skill, students will automatically ignore it. So some friends raised the issue of, raters reliability. We have these problems, I mean, everywhere. But because of that, we cannot ignore testing, speaking, or writing. Okay, so if we ignore them, that which is ignored by the, by ÖSYM, that it tests on the reading skill for the sake of objectivity, then what happens as a result? The people can read and understand, but they cannot communicate. Okuyorum ama anlamıyorum. So ya da okuyorum ama okudum anlıyorum ama konuşamıyorum. So we have this kind of products. So your assessment will decide what kind of product you will have. Şevki Hocam has covered all the alternative assessments and also pen and paper assessment, I mean comprehension or production. Thank you, Şevki Hocam. So we should keep in mind that we should teach for skills, and we should also take the trouble of testing for skills. We should start somewhere. Otherwise, it will create negative washback effect, and it will end up with the ignorance of those skills by our students or any learners. It's true that in Turkey, people learn and they want to have this label of success. Okay, so what will be the success based on? Being able to communicate in the target language. So it covers listening or reading comprehension and also production in terms of reading and writing, whatever the level is. But here we should be particular about the levels, and we should be encouraging, and we should give feedback without destroying their self-confidence. This is very important. Sometimes students feel really discouraged because of the test results. So it should be step by step, depending on the level. But students also should be announced, and we should be very transparent in terms of what to be tested. Sometimes my students announce me that, yes, he's a very easy teacher because he tells us all the questions. And I say, yes, I teach these things. These are the objectives. If you can perform these objectives in any assessment, yes, I love you. Because this is what I expect. These are the objectives that I want you to attain. If you can attain them and prove that you can, perform these objectives, you will be considered successful. That's all. Especially, it's very important for progressive achievement tests and also summative achievement tests. Well, for the exemption exam or proficiency exam, we don't know who they are. But for our students, we should be encouraging, and also we should provide constructive feedback to our students so that they will improve their learning English. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hocam, thank you very much. And now we are coming to the end of our seminar. It seems there is no one to ask or to make any contribution.
Can I make just a final contribution?
Sure.
I think, we need to have a kind of standardization, in testing committees in different, schools. For example, we have speaking skills, reading, listening, different language skills. Suppose that those teachers who don't know the sub skills of speaking, for example, how can we expect them to test, to assess speaking skills or like the writing? That's why I don't mean to say that our teachers are not qualified enough, but we see that some teachers may lack this information. I mean, the testing and the the rubrics, analytic and the holistic. All these rubrics are based upon the sub skills of different languages. I think the first thing to do is to train our teachers teaching these different language skills. Then accordingly they can test, they can assess. That should be the priority, I think, in schools of foreign languages, because this is our case. And also the other language teachers need to know all the sub skills of languages skills, and then how to test, how to assess all these different language skills. This should be the priority to me. Thank you. Nice to see everybody. Okay, have a good night.
Thank you very much, Recep Hocam, for your wrapping up and the final comment. And Şevki Hocam, thank you very much for your, again, once more, very insightful presentation. You outlined what could be taught in a semester in a short time. So I'm sure our students and young teachers are now quite familiar with the basic concepts. Now they continue getting more insight into the issues, and you very beautiful discuss with us. And also I thank Turan Hocam, Recep Hocam, Fehmi Hocam, Turgay Hocam, Hasan Hocam, Özgür Şahan Hocam, Onur Hocam for their contribution. It's very nice and good of you to share your experience with us. So I thank the Atatürk University and students from Atatürk University and Kafkas University, Muğla Sıtkı Koçman University, Pamukkale University, Karabük University, Recep Tayyip Erdoğan University, Artvin Çoy University, Medipol University, and Karadeniz Technical University, and Giresun University. And please forgive me if I fail to mention the other universities. And thank you very much. And let's say, and so we have one more session left, and which will be held in 2 weeks later. So herkese iyi akşamlar, iyi Ramazanlar, iyi sahurlar diliyorum. Herkes kendine iyi bakın arkadaşlar.
İyi akşamlar
Sağ olun
hocam.
hocam.
Çok sağ olun.
İyi akşamlar.